I first addressed the EU Parliament in Strasbourg in 2017. It was the first time a Canadian Prime Minister addressed your Parliament. Back then, this Parliament saw me as someone new on the world stage. We got to work, tackling progressive issues, building the things that we thought mattered. We could see that something was lurking off on the horizon, something shadowy, something that was threatening. We didn't look close enough. When I spoke to this Parliament 5 years ago, I spoke about making multilateralism work for the middle class and those working hard to join it, so that economic frustrations don't become fertile ground for populism, nativism, protectionism, and the polarization towards more extreme political views. Well, today, we are staring these forces in the face as they threaten the peace, justice, truth, democracy, and stability of our world. And we have a choice about what we do next. Since 2017, the world has changed a lot. A global pandemic has taken the lives of over 6 million people and disrupted the lives of everyone else. A global recession saw millions lose their jobs, with many economies still struggling to bounce back. A world that is not just now forecasting, but living the dangers of climate change. A growing distrust of governments and facts, a weakening of democratic institutions. We saw one of our staunchest guarantors of the rules-based order choosing for 4 years to step away from NATO, away from multilateralism. And now, Putin's criminal invasion of a sovereign, independent, democratic Ukraine. People have a real and deep sense of uncertainty about what the future holds. These are anxious times, and people are looking for leadership and solutions. Unfortunately, we're seeing a rise in cynical populists who are trying to exploit these anxieties. They pretend to have easy solutions that play on people's fears. Even in Canada, where 90% of people are vaccinated, and our motto as a country is peace, order, and good government, we saw anti-vaccine and anti-government protests devolve into the leaders of those convoys were effective in turning citizens with real anxieties against the system best suited to allay those concerns. But democracy isn't a game. And there just aren't easy solutions to the big, complex problems we are all facing. But that doesn't mean that the way forward isn't clear. There is no greater clarity than the will of the people who want better for themselves and their children at home, and no stronger defense against destructive forces from outside our democracies than the unwavering unity of like-minded partners.
Over the past 80 years, together, we have established and bolstered a series of rules and institutions in order to increase stability and previsibility for international affairs. And we did this to protect people, to provide for them the best prospects for peace, to defend their dignity and their inalienable rights, and in order to make sure that they be free to choose their own future. Today, these rules and institutions are being threatened publicly. Vladimir Putin has violated the most fundamental principles of international law, and he is now killing innocent civilians by bombing hospitals and residential buildings. This flagrant contempt for laws and for human life constitutes a huge threat for Europe, but also for the world.
Canada, the EU, and all of our partners and allies are facing a defining moment. We cannot fail. We must meet this moment. So I speak to you today no longer as someone quite so new. In fact, I may now be one of the longer serving progressive leaders around. And I'm certainly not going to pretend to have all the answers. But what I do know is that there is work that lies before us as thoughtful leaders, as people focused on the short and long-term well-being of all our citizens, as people committed to democracy and the values that underpin them. And that work is more important than ever. Putin thought democracy was weak. He saw our disagreements and debates as weakness. But what he has never understood is that the rigors of debate, that forceful civic engagement, is what makes us strong. And that democracy, at its best, will always be stronger than authoritarianism. But if we're going to be honest, and we need to be honest in this place, we haven't always been at our best these past years. Putin thought we were divided. He thought he could weaken the EU and NATO. He miscalculated, and he is seeing it backfire. NATO and the EU are now more resolved and united than ever, because all of us in this room who are committed to democracy know in our bones that democracy didn't happen by accident, and it will not continue without deliberate, mindful effort. Mes amis,
my friends, let me be clear. The Europeans, including our allies in Eastern Europe, can count on the friendship and the total support of Canada. Canada is heading the advance forward presence of tactical nature in Latvia for NATO. There are 10 countries of NATO coming together under that mission. For 5 years now, hundreds of Canadian soldiers have been deployed thousands of miles away from their homes to be placed just a couple of hundred kilometers from the Russian border. They are deployed in Latvia because what is important for the security of Europe is also important for the security of Canada. Recently, we announced that we would be doubling our deployment to NATO in the years to come. And these soldiers are not just defending Latvia and Eastern Europe, they are defending our freedom, our security, and all of our democracies.
We cannot let Ukraine down. They are counting on us. So let's use all the tools we have at our disposal. President Zelensky and I have been talking often about the strong ties between our countries. Canada, as mentioned, is home to the second largest Ukrainian community in the world after Russia. So we must all collectively step up to provide humanitarian aid to support families affected by this war, and already start thinking about investing to rebuild Ukraine afterwards. We must all continue to send military equipment and lethal aid to help Ukrainians in their heroic defense, not just of their lands, but of all of the principles that defend ours. And we must continue to impose unprecedented sanctions on Putin and his enablers in Russia and Belarus, increasing the pressure as much as we can. We must ensure that the decision to invade a sovereign, independent country is understood to be a strategic failure that carries with it ruinous costs for Putin and Russia. Putin's attack on Ukraine is an attack on the values that form the pillars of all democracies. We have a responsibility to make the case to people about why these values matter so much, not just to Ukrainians, but to us all. We must recommit ourselves to the work of strengthening our democracies and demonstrate the principled leadership citizens everywhere are looking for. That leadership means reinforcing the things our citizens have in common, rather than playing to their differences. The task before us is not small, but given the right tools, we can do it. And we should all be reassured of how much of this work is already underway in this place and in parliaments like it across Europe and around the world. Au Canada.
In Canada, our government is in the process of putting forward a legislative proposal to counter internet crime. And this year, Canada is assuming the presidency of the Coalition for Online Freedom. And we are going to continue to underscore the protection of the rights of people, inclusion and diversity online. Here in the European Union, your motto is united in diversity. In Canada, diversity is also at the very heart of who we are. Of course, we are aware that there is always more work that can be done. But when it comes to the issue of a reconciliation plan for Indigenous people to fight against systemic racism, for equality of genders, for the defence of LGBTQI communities, we are making progress, whether it be assuring the implementation of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, or investing in supporting entrepreneurs in communities of colour. We are giving the tools for economic growth for those who are often left in the lurch.
Can and should play a positive role in people's lives. In Canada, like in many European countries, we made massive investments to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. It was the right thing to do to protect our people, and it was the necessary thing to do to ensure a strong and robust economic recovery. Because we know that when we invest in people, including in the most vulnerable, and when we grow the middle class and make life more affordable for everyone, not only do individuals benefit, but our entire country and the foundations of our democracy also benefit. Que ce soit les
whether there be immediate consequences of lack of food security, inflation, high prices for fuel, or the longer consequences of climate change or the pandemic. Democracies have to be at their best to be able to hold those difficult, necessary conversations with their citizens to find the right solutions. And when it comes to the fight against climate change, collaboration between Canada and the European Union will continue to be essential. Our work will continue to accelerate our transition towards green energy, renewable energy, respecting our commitments from COP26, securing our chains of supply, including for critical raw materials and minerals. We have to continue to work together to build a cleaner future and a more resilient economy.
European countries also share the goals of reducing poverty and inequality while growing the middle class. We share aspirations for a better, safer, and cleaner future. Progressive trade agreements like CETA are helping our economies grow and creating good jobs while protecting high standards for workers, consumers, and the environment. Our ability to pull together despite differences and deliver for people really mattered, and I thank you all for that. With the longest coastline in the world, Canada's shores reach out into the Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic oceans, and our connections with the whole of the Americas is strong. We're one of the most globally connected partners at the UN, with memberships in NATO, the G7, the G20, the Arctic Council, APEC, the OAS, the Commonwealth, and La Francophonie. We all have a lot of work to do, and collaboration will be key to success towards building a better future for our kids and our grandkids. It will require constant efforts, but I'm confident that we are up to the task. I'm confident all of us here today. I'm confident in the resilience of our institutions, and mostly I'm confident in our citizens. And I can say that because of what I've witnessed over the past 4 weeks. The resolve of our united response to this unacceptable invasion has been stronger than anything Putin expected. And not just from governments, but from citizens in all our countries. It's that spirit and resolve that we must take forward with us. The European Union has mobilized to defend democracy. And as always, you can count on the friendship and full support of Canada every step of the way.
Together, we have to support democracies around the world, including those who are most fragile, and fight against authoritarianism, thanks to providing more investment and providing more committed leadership as well. We have to provide support for courageous people like President Zelensky and those Ukrainians who are fighting for their rights. And we have to continue our work, each and every one of us, in order to improve our democracies in our own countries.
5 years ago, we saw the storm clouds on the horizon. But today, we are clear-eyed.
Let us continue to fight lies with truth, fear with facts, division with unity.
As long as we don't take our democracy for granted, as long as we keep working every day to make it better, as long as our partnerships are strong, we can be confident in the future. In the words of Volodymyr Zelensky, light will win over darkness. Merci beaucoup, mes amis.